Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, under President Obama, of course, has spoken out now against President Obama. He wrote a book about this, and now he's doing some interviews. Let's go to Panetta shredding the president.
The portrait Panetta sketches of Barack Obama sometimes looks more like a professor than a president.
He relies on the logic of his presentation with the hope that ultimately people will embrace that logic and then do what's right. You know what? In 50 years, my experience is logic doesn't work in Washington. You got to basically go after people and make them understand what they have to do. And that means you create a war room, you go after votes, you have to push people.
So there's not that much that I agree with Leon Panetta on, actually, and he was a very conservative Secretary of Defense under Obama. I know, shocking that Obama would pick a conservative Democrat. And he was also part of the intelligence community that I think had a great number of screw-ups and invaded our privacy needlessly. And in other parts of that interview, he talked about how the president has a tough time making decisions and keeps punting, and he should have armed a quote-unquote moderate Syrian rebels 3 years ago, which is what Panetta and Hillary Clinton apparently advised him to do. Now, I think the White House has the better of that argument. They say, well, if we had armed the Syrian rebels 3 years ago, it's an excellent case that we would have accidentally armed ISIS, and right now everybody would have their hair on fire saying, I can't believe Obama armed ISIS. That's a really compelling point. Now, on this issue, though, that you saw the clip on, I think Panetta is right. President Obama has never seemed to understand that if you really want to get something done, it's a vote count. You got to go get the votes, and there are a couple of different ways to get votes. The smallest way is persuasion. I mean, who's naive enough to think that you could persuade professional politicians who are basically the practitioners of this trade where they get legalized bribes and then do the favors for the donors? That's how they get elected. They're not interested in your argument. They're interested in your dollars, right? And if you can help them win re-election, or they fear they're going to lose re-election, that's what they're interested in. So is to show you my case, when's the last time in any so-called debate that you saw in the United States Congress, you heard a politician say, well, you know what, the guy from Connecticut, the honorable gentleman from Connecticut made such a good point, I changed my mind. You know what the answer to that is? Zero. It doesn't happen in public, and it almost never happens in private. So what you have to do instead is carrots and sticks. It's a fairly logical and obvious point. But the one part that I disagree with Panetta within that point is, I don't think that President Obama doesn't understand that. I think he doesn't, frankly, care enough to go through the hard work of doing carrots and sticks. See, it's a messy business. For sticks, you got to go threaten people's careers. You got to say, I'm going to end your career. I'm going to send you home. I'm going to make sure you lose this re-election. Doesn't seem like that's in President Obama's DNA, okay? And if it is, it's only when it's his own election that's at stake, right? But on policy matters, you know, I already got reelected. I'm elected president twice. I got a great legacy. I did Obamacare. You want me to do something else? So that's hard work, man. And then I got to go figure out who's going to be with me and who's against me. Now, the one time I cared when it was about my legacy, Obamacare, well, then I did it. I was a little late to the game, but yeah, then I said, okay, you got to vote with me, and I did the pressure, and I did this, and I did that. On the rest of them, not really. I mean, come on, we're 6 years in now, basically, right? You tell me President Obama thinks he can sit down with a Republican, let alone a Democrat. I mean, it's not like they're paying attention either. That he can sit down with one of those guys and convince them that he is logically right on a policy position, and hence they should change their position? Oh, please don't tell me that the President of the United States is that painfully naive.